Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Welcome back to FOMO Friday. Yes, we love to dispense of your fear of missing out by bringing you the stories of the week that you should know a little bit about. And we have an interesting week of stories to bring you. We want to get right into it. And this week, as I alluded to in our Wednesday podcast, this week was when Dr. Anthony Fauci went before the Congress in order to give testimony. And Dr. Anthony Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment more than 110 times during Wednesday's Senate hearing. Now, this was reported in a series of articles by the Daily Wire, and he did this, declining to answer questions from Republican lawmakers on topics including the origins of COVID-19, funding for research in Wuhan, his communications with former NIAID advisor David Morans, EcoHealth Alliance, federal record keeping, and his handling of the pandemic. Now, Fauci responded to each question with the same statement. On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution. Yeah. In fact, here is a part of his exchange with Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it?
So based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Okay.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color is the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyer is sitting behind you now, shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich, didn't you? You got rich. While people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich, and not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, that's basically how it went the whole time. I believe it was like 111 times. Dr. Anthony Fauci refused to even turn around and face some of the people who were hurt by the draconian regulations and lockdowns that he pushed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Fauci on Capitol Hill for, of course, this Wednesday hearing, reviewing his statements and actions throughout the pandemic, spent most of his time just simply not answering the questions, just invoking his Fifth Amendment right, as he put it. Of course, you know, he doesn't really have a Fifth Amendment right here because you know, he was already pardoned by Biden's auto pen. But he continued to do so. But you know, under direct questions from Senator Bernie Moreno, Fauci took things a step further, and he refused to even look at people seated behind him in the gallery. Moreno first asked if Fauci could identify his own attorney, who had just been kicked out of the hearing for repeatedly attempting to speak when he hadn't been called on. Who is David Scheffler? Moreno asked, and Fauci immediately invoked the Fifth Amendment, prompting Moreno to ask what the Fifth Amendment said. So, yeah, the attorney got kicked out because he wasn't supposed to be sitting next to Fauci. He was supposed to be sitting behind him. Fauci had, more than a dozen attorneys there, or half a dozen anyway. And one of them got kicked out because he came up and he sat down next to Fauci, and then he wouldn't be quiet. He just kept talking when he wasn't supposed to be. Fauci, after a brief consultation with his attorney, did not answer, but again invoked his rights. Moreno went on to explain that Scheffler previously represented disgraced former Senator Robert Menendez and was known as the guy to call when you're in deep poop. Scheffler represented Menendez's campaign and his wife in 2023, who were the subject of a Justice Department probe at the time. Turning back to Fauci, Moreno asked, "Do you feel like you're in deep poop?" Fauci again invoked his Fifth Amendment rights. Quote, "Clearly, what you think today is that somehow you're above reproach. Somehow you feel like you didn't need to be treated like a normal American." Moreno said to Fauci this and then pivoted to address the audience. "Can you do me a favor in the audience and stand up if during the time of COVID pandemic you were called a racist for calling the virus the Wuhan virus or the China virus, if you thought the 6-foot rule was total poop, if you thought the vaccine wasn't something that you should take, if you thought it was outrageous the way the mask policy was rolled out, if you were fired from your job for not taking that vaccine, including members of the military, if you thought closing schools was catastrophically stupid and saying these things made you somehow a lesser human being." Well, of course, people in the gallery began to stand up in the rows behind Fauci, just 2 or 3 at first, and then more than a dozen were standing. Then, of course, Moreno asked Dr. Fauci, "Could you just turn and look at the people behind you?" Fauci ignored the request and looked straight ahead. "You're not willing to do that? It's not a question. It's not a question." And one of Fauci's lawyers tapped him on the shoulder then, and while he did not turn to speak with the attorney, he kept his head low and pointedly did not look at the people standing behind him. "To your lawyers, it's not a question, it's a request," Moreno asked. And he said, "All I have to do is look up from your lawyers and look at the people. That's all you have to do. You look at the people who were absolutely shamed for saying what we now know to be the truth. You can't even look at them. That's a question. Are you able to look at them?" When Fauci still said nothing, Moreno told the audience members that they could sit, and Fauci's mic was off, but he could barely be heard repeating his invocation of the Fifth Amendment like a mantra as they sat. So, yeah, I mean, there was a lot more. We could do a whole podcast on this thing, but it definitely did not make Fauci look good. It's really interesting that some of the left has gone out of their way to now try to make him out to be a hero still. I don't get that. After all that we know and all of the contradictions, the things he was saying in public versus the things that he was saying in private, at the very same time, I mean, he was flat out lying to America for his own benefit. And so anyway, it's not good for Anthony Fauci, but that's what he's chosen to do. Well, President Trump announced Thursday that negotiators have reached what he is describing as a historic agreement aimed at ending Hamas's control of Gaza, though the deal still awaits final approval from the terrorist group. He said, quote, "Today, the Board of Peace reached a historic agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. He actually wrote this on Truth Social. He said, "This is a monumental step toward lasting peace and security." Axios reported Thursday that U.S. officials and the Board of Peace believe Hamas could formally sign the agreement within days after agreeing to its terms during negotiations mediated by Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. However, the outlet noted that Israeli officials and Western diplomats remain skeptical that Hamas will ultimately follow through with its commitments. According to Trump, the deal would pave the way for Gaza to be governed by a new Palestinian government working alongside the Board of Peace while ensuring Israel, quote, will have the security it deserves, with Gaza no longer used as a base for terror attacks, unquote. The president said the agreement would be implemented in phases as Hamas and other armed groups surrender their weapons, after which Israeli forces would withdraw and the International Stabilization Force would help a new Palestinian police force maintain security. We'll see, even if that does get to that point, if that actually is a solution or not. Under the reported framework, Hamas would surrender both heavy and light weapons over 6 to 8 months, disclose the locations and tunnels and weapons deposits, and also allow a new Palestinian government to gradually assume control of Gaza. Israeli withdrawals would occur only after areas are independently verified and demilitarized, according to the Jerusalem Post. Trump thanked Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey for their mediation efforts and praised his negotiating team, declaring that the threat that emerged from Gaza on October 7th will not, and that's in capital letters, will not be allowed to rebuild. Negotiations remain ongoing, and officials caution that talks could still collapse before a final agreement is signed. And honestly, I mean, that's the expectation. I don't see Hamas giving up their weapons and control, but you never know, right? We'll see. We'll see what happens. Speaking of seeing what happens, that was part of the problem. Parents couldn't see what happened. In a Washington mother is removing her children from an elementary school that forced her daughter through a secret, explicit LGBT pride-themed lesson. Yeah, it gets worse. The lesson reportedly occurred during a 4th grade music class at Martha Lake Elementary in the Edmonds School District on June 15th. Now, parents were not given any notice to opt out or any information about the lesson itself before their children were exposed to the curriculum. That's according to the mother, Martha Varchetto. There we go. I think that's how you pronounce it. Well, she said, anyway, this is what she said. She told Talk Radio 750, she said, "My daughter came home just so drastically upset the last week of school, telling me that the music teacher decided to teach a whole curriculum about Pride history and Pride Month. I assumed I had probably missed an email asking for consent, but there was nothing." Varchetto said in communications with school administrators that she shared with Fox News, saying no advance notice, no opportunity to review the lesson, no information letting parents know this topic would be discussed, no option to request that our kids be allowed to opt out and participate in an alternative activity. There was nothing. Now, according to Varchetto, her daughter was forced to watch a video called "Why is Pride in June?" from the channel Queer Kids Stuff that discussed the history of the gay movement and so-called bathroom rights for trans-identifying people. Her daughter said the class also watched videos of performances by LGBT singers such as Freddie Mercury of Queen and Lil Nas X, as well as Billy Porter dancing in a ball gown on Sesame Street. Varchetto's daughter said that students were also told they could identify as gay, lesbian, asexual, transgender, non-binary, or two-spirit. Quote, no handouts were sent home, which is typical for a music class. This is what the mother said. The mother emailed administrators for a copy of the lesson materials, but she was told they could only be reviewed in person, not electronically. I wonder why. Yeah, we can't be doing that in 2026. There's no electronics in 2026. She said, quote, I need parents to be informed of this. Parents have the right to know what was taught to their kids. Whether or not you agree with it or disagree with is irrelevant. You don't get to teach and go rogue on subjects that are this controversial without providing parents a notice to opt out. Well, the principal explained to Varchetto in a meeting that the Pride lesson was not district-approved curriculum and that teachers are allowed to make their own lessons. The principal said that the music teacher, again, this is music class, tied a lesson to a month's theme, such as Black History Month for February or Hispanic Heritage Month for September. Of course, it was June, so she went with Pride, right? Barchetto said that she told the principal, okay, that makes sense. Those are cultures. Those are not gender identities. Big difference here. The principal gave Varchetto a list of subjects covered in the music class, and Varchetto reviewed the end of the year summary that the music teacher sent to parents. Neither document mentioned the Pride Month lesson. That's convenient, right? The principal reportedly explained that the school was apprehensive about telling parents about the lesson because it would just isolate the LGBTQ community, making them feel like people can opt out of their consent. Okay, gotta stop here. Do you hear what he's saying here? They decided not to tell parents and allow them to opt out of this lesson. Why? Because it would isolate the LGBTQ community, making them feel like people can opt out of their content. Yes, that's the point. You should have allowed them to opt out of the content. Unsatisfied with how the school handled the situation, Varchetto said she gave the school several weeks to notify parents before making her concerns public, and when no notice was posted, she sent an email to district administrators requesting that her child be transferred from the school. Now, Varchetto ultimately decided to put her kids through hybrid homeschooling. Not a bad idea there. Quote, we are 100% removing our kids from this school as I have no trust in the leadership, she said. I feel mad they did this, mad they hid it, and added, I feel insulted, offended, angry, and sad that my kids are now being taken out of a lifestyle they've grown to love, away from their friendships they've built, all because this one teacher didn't care to ask permission, and a principal lied and hid it. Yeah, and this is just one case. This is just one incident. And really, it is reason number 1,474 of why you should be homeschooling your kids, or at least taking them out of public school. Well, speaking of LGBTQ and that whole thing, and transgenderism and that and whatnot, there was a WNBA controversy, and talk about big league blowups. Seattle Storm co-owner Celeste Keaton, I guess is her name, allegedly hurled a series of expletives at a pair of teenage girls during Tuesday night's game, leaving one of the 16-year-olds in tears after they showed support for Indiana Fever star Sophie Cunningham. She's the one, with memes that is pointing. yeah. And they did that because they were wearing XXXY athletic gear. Independent journalist Brandy Cruz broke the jaw-dropping story after stopping the distressed teens in the arena. She interviewed the girls and first reported their account. The girls told Cruz that Keaton stormed up to them when they were seated in the stands holding signs supporting Cunningham and unleashed a wild, unprovoked tirade, branding the teenagers as effing insane. In fact, here's their account of that.
Well, we were just sitting there with our signs that said, like, we love Sophie, like, thank you, Sophie, for speaking up. And so we were holding them, just watching the game. Again, like, we were being super great. We hadn't said anything to anyone else. We were being super respectful. We were just holding our signs and cheering for both teams. And this lady, older lady, comes up to us. And she comes up to us, and at first I think she's going to be nice. And she asked, like, what are you guys doing? Something like that. And then it was like, Jesus loves everyone. That's what she told us. And I was like, oh, I know. Like, I'm religious. Like, I know. Like, I know. Nice. Yeah. And she's like, oh, I hope Jesus can forgive you for what sin you've done. And, like, something like that. And then she told us that we were effing insane. And she's like, and she went like this. Insane. Yeah. She's like, you better stop this. And stop. And for you guys I hope God can save you. This. Yeah. She said, for you to come here and pull this. Yeah. She said the word? Yeah. Did she say effing insane or? Oh, she said the word. Yeah. And nobody around you spoke up for you. No. I will say, Annalie, when I came over, you were in tears. Yeah, I've never been yelled at like that. I mean, I've had people hate on me on the internet, but like it doesn't really affect me as much because it's just people online. But that just took me by surprise because I thought she was gonna be nice, and then she started like screaming at us and cussing at us. So yeah. And so you said she walked away, and we thought that was kind of it. But she mentioned something to you about like working for the team or. There was another lady that like told us like we were able to have our opinions, but we needed to not be political about it. And I tried to explain to her I wasn't trying to be political. I was just trying to support Sophie and support the other teams. And you were just sitting there watching. Yeah, we hadn't interacted with anyone except for like saying excuse me. Yeah. Like we were really nice and stuff. And then this lady told us like, oh, you know who that is? And we were like, no. So what was your reaction when I texted you that is the owner of the team? It's just sad. We were like, what? Yeah, we were shocked. Yeah, it's disappointing though too, because she's also a woman and she just kind of cussed out two 16-year-olds that were just trying to have fun. We weren't trying to be political. You're just trying to support Sophie, which I guess maybe that. Oh, well. Yeah. And so overall, because I know that wasn't the only person who was like giving you a hard time, kind of. I mean, did you feel like they've got their no hate signs up, and did you feel welcome? No, the whole time we were kind of on edge. I was like, should we pull our sign out? I don't know. Yeah. And the lady was sitting right across from us, and the two people on the side of us were like turning their back and trying to sit as far away from us. Yeah. Yeah, they did not. Because one of them, when you sat down, did you notice that they had a no hate in these United States? I didn't notice it till after she had said something like, Sophie's not actually speaking up for girls, which who else would she is. But anyways. Yeah. I mean, just in general, like you're at this sporting event that really is about the peak of female athletics. And for them, the owner, to treat you in that way for wearing this t-shirt, I mean, what do you take away from that? That maybe we're not being very hateful, and maybe they should work on being more kind to people, even though our opinions differ. Because we were being respectful and kind to people, and I don't care if you think something else. It's your opinion. But obviously she was not happy. Yeah. All right, girl.
Yeah, so, I mean, these two teenagers were only holding a sign that said, thank you, Sophie, for standing up for girls. I mean, that was it. Well, in a statement to Fox, the Storm provided an apology. They said, we are aware one of our co-owners made comments to two fans in attendance at last night's game. We apologize that this happened. Everyone who attends a Storm game deserves to feel welcome, and we remain committed to creating an inclusive environment where every fan is treated with respect. Just side note, it sounds like this particular co-owner has been suspended from going to her own games for 5 games, and she did get a fine for it, though that wasn't specified how much. So this is what I'm going to say. I mean, this brings up a great point. Those that tout themselves as inclusive and tolerant of others and their views are the least inclusive and tolerant. I mean, yeah, they are tolerant of your views, just as long as your views match theirs. They are inclusive of everyone that believes like them. And it kind of reminds me of a quote I heard recently, and it was attributed to Henry Ford. And he said this quote. He said, "You can buy a Model T in any color you like, just as long as it's black." So, all right. So let's move on to some. And this is normally where we have our celebrity news, and I guess you could call this guy a celebrity, maybe. How about St. Augustine? Is he a celebrity? I don't know. So scholars have discovered 2 previously unknown sermons by St. Augustine of Hippo, while translating an 11th century manuscript from a German monastery, shedding new light on one of Christianity's most influential theologians. University of Würzburg Latin scholar Christian Noru discovered the sermons while translating a manuscript originally from Bad Doderen Abbey. I guess it's in Germany anyway. The manuscript contained copies of 6 sermons attributed to Augustine. Quote, 2 of the 6 sermons are previously undiscovered writings by Augustine. This is what Professor Toro said. He said, because forged works attributed to Augustine are common, Toro said his colleagues initially suspected the sermons were inauthentic, according to the New York Post. And after identifying Augustine's trademark humor and references to his North African Christian tradition and a distinctive style of prayer, Torno and a panel of 20 Latin scholars concluded they are indeed authentic. So Augustine, who was born in what is now Algeria, is regarded as one of Christianity's most influential theologians, and his writings, including Confessions and the City of God, helped shape medieval philosophy and Western thought. And the newly discovered sermons focus on the biblical account of King Saul, which is interesting, King Saul and the Witch of Endor from the first book of Samuel. Now, in the story, Saul seeks guidance from God before a battle, but instead turns to the Witch of Endor, asking her to summon the prophet Samuel, who foretells Saul's death. Now, Torno told Fox News Digital that Augustine's interpretation of Saul's repentance was the most remarkable element of the sermons. While many Christian scholars throughout history viewed Saul as an unrepentant villain, Augustine interpreted the story as suggesting Saul made peace with God before his death. Quote, in any event, it is indicative of Augustine's independence of mind and his willingness to think everyone, even those who appear most evil, capable of salvation through the grace of God. Quote, this combines intellectual honesty and episcopal humility in a remarkable and very Augustinian way. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to find these and see just exactly how he saw this going down, and it kind of gave us a little bit of a look into his mind and theology, and what Saul was about. You know, did he repent and say, yeah, you know, this is not what I really should have done, or was it that he was just the villain and he didn't repent? You know, like I say, some theological type of stuff that we're getting a little more light on, right? Well, we wanted to end on one last note here. That's always, I try to bring something and that's maybe a little weird, maybe a little funny. This falls into the weird category, and this comes from AP. More than 800 pounds of peanut butter, enough for around 15,000 sandwiches, has been spread across the floor of a museum in the Netherlands in tribute to Dutch artist Wim T. Schippers, who died last month. The conceptual artist, who died at the age of 83, first created the peanut butter floor in 1969. Yeah, does that surprise you? The work was unveiled on Thursday at the Depot offshoot of a museum in the Dutch port city of Rotterdam for a 2-month show. So you still got a little bit of time to go see it if you want to. Schippers was a beloved nonconformist character in the Netherlands, shocker, where he also voiced Ernie and Kermit the Frog in the Dutch version of Sesame Street, and created absurdist and silly works that challenge conventional ideas about the meaning of art. Okay. Quote, isn't it fantastic that we are all standing here looking at peanut butter? That's what the artist told journalists in 1997, where the peanut butter floor was on display for a second time. The Schippers created the work as part of a floor covering series, which also included floor coverings of glass shards and salt. I that's a lot of peanut butter. Anyway, I would love to hear what you think on it. Maybe you're familiar with his art. I don't know. I was not, but maybe you really like him. I would love to hear from you on it. Of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Please go to our YouTube page and like and share there. It always helps us. And thank you for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.